We are recording. Welcome to another Grit and Grime basketball podcast. I'm your host, as always, David Sagoe, here with the usual crew. We've got a full house, 4 people in full effect. We have, of course, Thomas Arnal.
Oh, hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Michael Downey.
Yes.
And Jose Garcia. Vidal. In the building. So we changed plans real quick, threw out the old plans, brought in some new we received some new information, and we continue to receive new information by the minute, it seems. We're recording on a Tuesday night, 1 day and some hours after it was announced in one of those other sports with a round ball.
Yep.
That
Soccer.
12
Rugby.
teams, 12 teams were breaking away from the Champions League, essentially, from the UEFA Champions League in football, soccer, or whatever you want to call it. We have chosen to talk about this because it's interesting that the owners of those 12 teams and potentially more teams saw the idea of a league with no relegation, just like the NBA, with no, what's the word? With no draft. Well, sorry, not no draft. They have a draft. They like the idea of potentially having a salary cap and bringing in all of these facets to the league that that the NBA already has, and moving to a system similar to that of the Euroleague, which we have in basketball. So, what do you guys think? Sorry, we're not going to start there. We're going to start with the structure.
Yeah, I'll give a summary of what was proposed yesterday and what the teams. I mean, we're coming from like the English perspective. I don't know what the message was in sort of a Spain and Italy, but the UK teams, Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham, basically wrote in to sort of say, yeah, we're doing this, down with the consequences, we're going to join this league. What they were proposing was that it would be a 20-team league. 15 of the spaces, 15 of the 20 would be full licenses, which would be basically lifetime members of that league. There would be no qualification necessary for them, and no sort of relegation or anything like that. And then there would be another 5 guest teams that would change on a season basis. How that would work wasn't clarified. No details on that. And then the other teams from the other countries, we had Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid from Spain, Inter, AC Milan from Italy, and Juventus from Italy as well. So crucially, no teams from Germany, no teams from France. Germany, for those that don't know, Bayern Munich specifically are one of the most winning teams in European football. You can't really see the champion of Europe without having Bayern Munich in there, in my opinion. Anyway,
they're the current reigning champions of Europe.
Current champions.
Yeah. There we go. So they've said that. They've got JP Morgan bankrolling the whole thing. Basically, I think the figures that I was hearing was that the winners of the Champions League would usually get around 300 to 400 million, whereas that would just be what every team would get for participating in the European Super League, as they're calling it, which is an insane amount of money. So I think it's around £4 billion.
Yeah, it's crazy
per year.
So yeah, you can see where the motivation might come from. It would differ from the Champions League in that it would be more of a league basis where each of the teams would be playing each other like multiple times, and then from there you'd have a playoffs, which is a sort of more in sync with what you'd see from the NBA or something like that. They even had a play-in tournament, guys. Even suggesting a play-in tournament.
See,
so that was the proposal. That is the proposal. I guess some people are getting cold feet, it seems.
Yeah, there's a few people blinking in the game of chicken.
Yeah. UEFA came out to say, if you do this, you can't participate in the other European competitions. They even suggested that the players that would be in that wouldn't be able to play for their national team.
Yeah, for the World Cup.
Yeah, there were suggestions that the teams would be kicked out of the Premier League.
Then you wait for a meeting tonight to decide whether the teams that agreed to do it are going to be kicked out of the current European competition. So it just so happens that the 1 year, Manchester City, Chelsea are in the semi-finals. Real Madrid are also in the semi-finals.
PSG will win automatically, basically.
Yeah, PSG.
Well, there was no way. There were two ideas. It was like PSG by default, or bringing back the teams that have lost.
So Dortmund,
and Munich, and who was the other one?
Liverpool.
Porto. No.
Porto.
I don't know how they Porto. Liverpool cannot come back. Porto.
Liverpool can't, of course.
Why not?
There you go.
So they would be meeting tonight, or will be meeting tonight to decide that. They could be meeting as we speak. We could get some breaking news. And then also, so what was it? They are meeting. Oh, and then in the Europa League, Manchester United and Arsenal are in the semi-finals. Yeah. So they would potentially not be able to continue in those two competitions, and they would shunt it straight to the final and have that go ahead. I think Roma's in the bracket, and I can't remember who the other team. Spartak. Is it one of the Spartak teams? Prague or Sparta Prague? Yeah, so that's the plan on that side. So that's the incentive. Obviously, you have the money, you have the security, and then you have the disincentive, which is being banned from international competition. A few players have already spoken out against it. Yeah. Interestingly, I think I know Bruno Fernandes left a cryptic message basically saying that he plays for the love of the game.
Yeah.
Ander Herrera wrote a message. He's currently at PSG. His team wasn't involved yet, but
some managers.
But he was saying that he plays for the love of the game again. It was a very romantic thing that he wrote because it didn't talk anything about money, and that's a lot of what this is about, really. Jurgen Klopp came out and said he didn't know anything about it. I didn't know.
Yeah, well, they
said something against it, though.
Yeah. The feeling or the message was that the owners had done this without consulting fans, players, managers, staff, anything like that.
They are the owners, and they shouldn't have to consult, but they also have to be smart enough not to go against the fans, right?
Yeah.
So from a manager that is not involved in these teams, Marcelo Bielsa, Leeds manager, he said basically, this is the richer teams getting even richer at the expense of the poorer teams getting poorer. That's exactly
it. Yeah, exactly that.
And the way that works is basically, even though the teams would stay in their domestic leagues, or at least they were hoping they would stay in their domestic leagues and they wouldn't be kicked out, by leaving the Champions League, by leaving the Europa League, what that does is reduce the amount of money that UEFA gets from all of the revenue that they get from there, and any revenue that they then use to feed into smaller European clubs, smaller European countries, and anyone else that money normally filters down to. There's also the youth. There's a Champions League youth league that runs all year round, and that kind of thing may not be able to be supported without having these big teams in the Champions League. But why don't they just make Leicester European giants? Why don't they just make
Newcastle?
Make another one.
Fulham.
No, but it's very interesting how it came about. Like we were discussing before we started recording, as how the idea of a Super League has been going on for 30 years. It's been discussed and it's been squashed many times over. When we can't either it wasn't the right timing or we couldn't do it. And this one came about because of the new proposed changes to the Champions League as it stands. And I think the widening and the opening and the addition of new teams within the Champions League, I think that was one of the things
I think they've used that timing wise for a convenient sort of jump off to put it out there. But this has been in the works. I mean,
absolutely.
There was Project Big Picture from the Premier League Big Six last year as well, when sort of the financial impacts of COVID were coming into play. But I mean, it's there's no secret that like those big, well, I don't know if I'd sort of say all of the Big Six, but certainly Man U, Man City, Liverpool,
Chelsea
bring in a lot of the income to the Premier League, like a large proportion of it. The Premier League in the first place was made so that they could get more of that, and it wasn't equally shared in the first place. So this is kind of playing true to form. Basically.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's been going this way.
But it's the first time. It's the first time in English sort of football history that I know of that there has been no need for qualification, no relegation, that sort of sense of security, and that closed offness from anybody else being able to get and gain that sort of advantage that comes with it.
It's exclusive, man. If you want something to sell, got to make it exclusive, limited edition. Only so many spots, and that's something that they talk about often in the NBA, right? That there's only 30 coaching jobs.
Yeah.
So there's only going to be so many people that get those opportunities, and if you get one and you don't do well with it, what happens next? So I think they wanted more of that system. It's not by mistake that Liverpool have American owners and Manchester United have American owners. Arsenal has an American owner. And Stan Kroenke in particular owns multiple sports teams. So he knows how all the different sports operate. Him and his team, his group, know how all the different sports operate. And I'm sure they know which ones not necessarily bring in the most money, but which ones operate in the most secure way. And I think a team like Arsenal, who were known almost for getting into the Champions League every year under Wenger, it's a trophy, right? A fourth place trophy. That was the joke. Now that they've dropped down, this was an opportunity for them to profit off their name, right? And get back that security that they had when they were making the Champions League every year, and more, because it's even more money. And they know that they'll be in that situation for the foreseeable future.
I think you kind of hinting on the sort of the one of the big sort of parts of this that have sort of annoyed a lot of people is that there's 6 teams from the UK, which is double everywhere else at the moment, and then it's not been done on footballing merit. They're not the 6 most successful teams that are currently, well, you can You can slice
If you look at the Premier League table right now, you should go off that, right? That's what you're saying. But that's what you're saying. It's not the six most successful teams right now.
Yeah.
Or the guys that have most recently won a title or anything like that sort of thing. It's done on brand.
Yes.
There's a bit of a shout to history, but then you can't really say that for Man City and Tottenham, really.
Yeah.
It's done on who can sell the most.
Right.
It's done on marketing potential as well. Like Tottenham has a massive stadium. They can sell kits.
Absolutely.
But it's also, there's a lot of mix. There's you can see the US influence on this, which is a vastly different culture of sports. It's like just the fact that every single league in the US is a closed league. There's no going up and down system. The fact there's not even a draw system. Like you have to win or lose. You had to explain a couple of times how do you I literally had that conversation with American people. It was like, well, what's a draw? It's like, well, this one nobody wins. It's like, it's
Americans make fun of the concept of drawing in every other sport, right? They make fun of it.
Yeah.
But which I think for us is a completely natural thing, and it's actually part of it. It's it can be calculated. It can be So it's an interesting. I think like culturally, it's been a very interesting 24, 48 hours now. It's like there's a couple ways of looking at how sports is run and what the end goal is. Of course, it's money nowadays, but if you forget about that, you just look at the culture of sports between Europe and the US. There's that one big difference is that the going up or down system is something that's very much, I don't know if it's was that created in Europe. I guess probably it's something culturally that was born here. So, and that's something that's quite important. It actually.
That's a league, right? That's
a league. Yeah, it's a whole system in place. That's a whole system in place.
Well, it's not a league. That's the thing. It's multiple leagues,
I
think that's the difference, right? What the way that they have their systems. If you look at the G League and you look at the was it the minor leagues in baseball, the A leagues, they tend to have feeder leagues that feed into the main league rather than having.
Players in, not teams.
Yes. Sorry, feed players into the main league, rather than having a hierarchy of leagues.
Yeah. It's a different setup. It's a different setup of getting talents in and getting new blood in.
Which is that was quite bizarre to me, sort of growing up, and when I got into basketball, realizing that. Not only was the NBA sort of a closed off system, but also the G League and the leagues below that were also in a similar way sort of set, and you couldn't get promoted to the G League. I always thought that was kind of whatever the G League was back then as well. Like I always thought that like there would be a similar setup in basketball that there was in football.
No, but it's not the case.
I think it's super interesting talking about this and talking about the US sports. And if you think about the sports culture, it translates to the fans as well. Like if you're a fan of a team that got relegated, you were the shittiest team, in the season, and you lost and you went down a division, And it sucks, but then the next year you might win second division, and it's great just to have that win. If you're a fan of the, I don't want to mention that New York team that hasn't been doing well for the past 20 years, but if you're a fan of the Cavs for the past 3 years, you're like, right, like oh my god.
When does it get better?
Who? I mean, are Americans as big of fans? Let me rephrase that. How important is it for them that their team wins? Is it as important as it is for European fans for their team to win or lose or draw or qualify or remain in a competition in the Premier League, right? How important is that?
Safety,
How important is it for a team to not get relegated?
Yeah,
that is almost bigger than winning a championship.
Sometimes, absolutely.
Right? So Americans, I guess they don't have that they will never get that edge. They're like, yeah, next year will be better, but they're still in the same league. They're not going to lose against the best teams. Like, like, what's the point, right? In a way that I never saw it like this, but just talking to you guys, I just realized it's amazing.
It's one of the reasons why I like the NBA, but I don't love the NBA as a system. It's literally that, right? And so the more I think about it, it's like, okay, so if you do really well, your price is a shot at getting a title. And that's fine. That's a great thing. That's the ultimate goal. If you do crap, the worst thing that's going to happen to you is that you're going to raise your chances of getting a potentially great player. So in a way, you're rewarded by being crap. And that's what we see tanking. And that's what we love at tanking every single year. We have our tanking podcast episode. It's like, and it's to me, that's a weird concept. I understand why it's there, I understand how it works, and understand why they changed it a little bit. Now they tweaked the rules. But in terms of the stake what's the stake during the season, it dramatically kills any sort of tension that would. It's like, the along with the fact that there's 25 million games in the NBA, and you keep hearing me saying, there's too many games, and it's just it dilutes everything to me. The passion and the result. Like, again, we'll talk about the Euroleague in a second, but in the Euroleague, there's every single game matters. Like you can be in or out, but that one, that's one difference because there's less games.
Right.
But the fact that there's no relegation, or there's nothing to fight against if you're at the bottom of it, that's a bit of a byproduct of the way your league is set up, right? And it's a bit weird. I think there's something quite, that I'm sure we all been in that situation where our team in football was close to the relegation and they got saved on the last.
Have
maybe
we?
not Michael, but okay. How many times have you seen that in leagues around the world?
No, it's huge.
Where
it's
huge. Like the last goal, the last
Absolutely.
second, and you saved, and there's something that in the US they cannot understand, right?
Sometimes the battle at the bottom is more exciting than the battle at the top.
Oh yeah.
That battle to stay in. Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking of a nerdy example. Like, what if, Mortal Kombat, right? What if you win 10 tournaments in a row and then you don't get to invade Earth, right? That's nerdy. If you know anything about Mortal Kombat, you get it. But if not,
Look it up.
The movie in cinemas soon. This is not an ad.
If you don't get to invade, what if you're Shao Kahn and you don't get to invade Earth?
But yeah, like last year, there was that viral moment of Villa celebrating staying in the Premier League, and they were celebrating like they had won the trophy. Like it was
100%.
It looked no different to the way that Liverpool celebrated. And then Roy Keane, typical Roy Keane, cynic as always, turned his nose up at it, and he was like, "What are they celebrating for? Like they haven't won anything." But the fact of the matter is, when these teams get relegated, a lot of things change. I mean, a lot of those players would have to take pay cuts. The team loses money.
Leave immediately.
A lot of players leave. I mean, there was talk of Jack Grealish leaving if they had been relegated, and he stayed, and now they're in the top 6, 7, 8.
Well, think about Leeds. Leeds was away of the Premier League for what? 20 years? More?
Maybe not 20, just because the Premier League isn't that old, but they were a
staple Premiership before, but they were a top team, right? And all of a sudden they were relegated, and I was talking to a Leeds fan when they got back to the Premier League last year, and he was like very emotional just talking about it, If that's how much it means, like it's part of your life. It's not just wearing a t-shirt, a jersey, and going to the game. It's part of your life, and that's what's missing from the US sport, just as Tom was saying earlier.
But then two questions. And in fact, I'll ask this to you, Mike. The first one anyway. If there was no relegation, let's say your beloved Sunderland were in the Premier League and they abolished relegation, wouldn't you be happy about that? If you were one of the haves, if you were one of the teams that got in and were able to stay in, right? Like, I guess the question is, as much as it's an emotional roller coaster, is it not better without the pain?
No, because for me, especially because if you finish last, you just finish last. You just suck at that point, right?
Right.
Like there is no incentive to finish last without a draft system.
But would you rather suck in the Premier League or or be great in Division 2?
Like I would rather go down. To be honest with you,
Right.
I think we've talked about the excitement of being in the relegation battles and stuff like that, but there's it's odd because I don't know how it would work basically. So it's quite difficult to try.
You can't conceive it. You can't conceive it because you weren't raised that way.
Yeah.
You know, you grew up in an environment where if you lose, you go down and you suck.
All I could imagine would be just like it just wouldn't matter as much. Like just none of it would matter as much. Basically, like if you weren't going to, because they have the incentive to be in the top 8, the top 4, if you're not there, and the separation that's happening because of the money that's associated with qualifying for Europe and Champions League and stuff like that, creates a class system within the Premier League already, sort of thing.
Sure.
If you're consistently not there and you also don't get like a reset chance, a sort of thing like that, then you just end up in purgatory. You just like it'd just be really difficult. Whereas at the moment you kind of have this incentive to like go for it. You basically there is a financial incentive for the owners to go for it, to not get relegated. Getting relegated from the Premier League is hugely impactful financially. They've had to bring in parachute payments because of the impact of what was happening with relegated teams. So it forces owners that are cheap, like your Mike Ashleys of the world, absolute scumbags who run clubs into the ground, because all they're in it for is the money. If you had an owner, and our owners in the past as well, we've had owners like that. If you have owners that are only concerned with the bottom line, they would be happy. They would just go, okay, all right, we're not going to make that without me plowing X amount of money into it at a risk of not even making it. Even if I do plow that money into it, there's no incentive to kind of go for it. Like it's yeah, as I said, I think it would just end up in a lot of teams being in a painful sort of purgatory. Whereas you have this, you have the excitement of going down or not. You have the incentive to try and not go down. And then if you do, you start all over, and then you're at the top of that league, you know? So it might be a lesser glory, but you have that chance of some glory there as well. Like I've been, I support Sunderland for the people listening to the podcast that don't personally know me.
The Jamaican accent was a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
It's an inside joke. I've been a fan when we've won the championship. I think it might have even been Division 1 at the time. And the celebration that you have as being part of that, even though it's not winning the Premier League, it's nothing like that, but it's still huge. It's really immense to be part of that. Yeah. So, I think it would. I think it would suck to have a close system. Like you keep the money there and things like that, but I just don't. I don't like it. I see it as anti-competition, basically, like anti-competitive sort of thing.
And the temptation is always, as we've done, to talk about domestic leagues, but the reality of the situation is that this is a league that would, according to the teams, would run alongside domestic leagues. The Premier League teams had no plan of leaving the Premier League. They still wanted to remain in that competition, and the same was true for the teams in the other leagues and in other countries. So in that sense, it kind of parallels what happens in European basketball with the Euroleague. So Tom, you were going to say a little bit about make that comparison and how this Super League proposal is actually closest to the Euroleague.
Well, the Euroleague would have been what the Super League would have been what the Euroleague is right now to basketball, right? It came about with the same reasons, which is money and control and power over the competition from the clubs. So the Euroleague used to be run by FIBA before, which is the equivalent of FIFA. It just switched B's, and then so that ran of like 1960s all the way to 2000. And then in 2000, a bunch of teams. I think there was about 11 teams. I can name them for you if you want. So it's the usual suspect. I was going to say Barcelona, Madrid, Milan, Olympiacos, Panathinaikos. I think Fenerbahce. CSKA Moscow, anyway, all the big names.
Tel Aviv, an interesting one.
Tel Aviv as well. So in 2000 they went, okay, well, we had enough of this. We'll create our own thing and we'll run it ourselves. And there was one season of complete chaos in European basketball in I think 99, 2000 or 2001, where there was a former Euroleague called the Super League that was run by FIBA. And then alongside of that, there was the Euroleague, which was run by the Euroleague company. And the funny fact is that actually FIBA never bothered with trademarking the name Euroleague. So Euroleague just went ahead and registered the name as a company. And they went, hey, that's ours now. You guys go with whatever you want now. But you can't use our name.
That is an oversight.
Wow. So again, that shows you how again this. So the same way that there's things good and bad things coming with the Super League, there are reasons why clubs feel the way they feel and feel like they should go ahead. It was the same thing in European basketball when it's like, look, the FIBA, the way it's structured and the way it's running things is pretty amateurish. Like it's there's a lot of things that's going on wrong and we need to fix, and we need to be more organized, more professional, and attract more sponsorship, attract more money. We need that cash because otherwise we'll die. It's pretty much the same arguments that's being. So Florentino Perez from Real Madrid was using those exact same arguments today and yesterday. Like, we need to save football. It's like, yeah, sure.
We're struggling. The millions are weighing us down.
Again, in European basketball, that's a very different landscape. It's that we don't swim in those hundreds of millions of euros of sponsorship deals, and it's slightly less. So it's no NBA money. It's not Champions League money either. So in a way, I sort of understand why they did it, and it made sense at the time. And so right now, as it stands, the Euroleague's been going on for 20-something years. Is the second best basketball league after the NBA in terms of quality of play and the players that are involved in the organization. If there's a podcast actually run by I think it's Joe Arlocas, I can't remember his name. He used to play for Madrid. He's interviewing Euroleague players, mostly American or US players that play in the Euroleague, and it's like, what are the differences between the NBA and the Euroleague that you can see if you played, they play in the NBA, you play now in the Euroleague, and it's like, well, it's almost the same thing, same terms of quality, and terms like, there's a few differences in the game, but like it's very high level. So it's quite interesting that in Europe we've managed to sort of get together and create that league and make it so that it's actually very fun to watch. So for those who don't know, my team's joined the EuroLeague 2 years ago, my home team Asvel, who's now owned by Tony Parker. Nicola Batum is one of the shareholders. We've got what's his face, Steph Jackson's in there also. There's a bunch of NBA players also. We've got some cash. So historically, my team is it's like the Boston Celtics in the NBA. It's the team with the most titles. It's the team like historically has never gone down from the first division. The only team in the entire French history of French basketball. So it's like we're there. We never won anything in Europe though. So that's the one bad thing from us. Like, we never managed. We did the Final Four in '97, and that was it. That was the biggest thing we've ever done. EuroLeague Final Four. but thanks to Tony Parker, now there's a bunch of things happening in my hometown, which is like a new football stadium for Lyon, where it's this nice new stadium that was inaugurated back in 2016 for the Euro in France. And alongside that, they've also, they had plans of building a massive arena next to that of between 8 to 15,000 seats in there. So that attracted also the Euroleague, because the Euroleague said, look, we've got a lot of eyeballs on Spain. Germany is a big market. Italy, obviously, Turkey, Greece.
Yeah.
We need France. We also need France, and we need the UK. So we talked before recording they also need London to be in there at some point. But they say France, we need 1, 2, 3 teams from there, because it's a huge market for basketball.
Huge.
And it's they can't do without it. And since my team's joined the EuroLeague, like the number of, again, I like that word, but the number of eyeball on the EuroLeague like has double or triple. Like there's a lot more viewerships in France. It's just exploded. Like and it's doing well. But so that again, that's what we were talking about when we started before recording. Is like, I'm in this weird position now where I would be a hypocrite saying, "Oh, I don't understand. I don't like the idea of the Super League, right?" Because my team is in the EuroLeague. They're still in the French league, the National League, which is ultra important to me. Like winning that title is more important than any other title in basketball. Like if we win the EuroLeague one day, I wouldn't care as much.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's our, like, in a way it's sort of ours because we want it so often. It's like that's our baby. Like we don't want to share that.
I guess it's a special situation.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like a bit like Real Madrid. Real Madrid is in the DNA. They want more Champions League, but they also have like 25 billion titles in Spain. So they sort of want to go like, this is ours too. They don't like to share with Barcelona. So it's the same sort of spirit there. We're like, okay. I'm not saying that I wouldn't take a EuroLeague title. I'll take it gladly. That would be great.
Reject it.
But that's the hierarchy.
But like, in my eyes, at least, I don't know about other fans, but so there's some weird things that I can. The thing is, I can understand the arguments from the teams that are sort of pulling away. You know, the big teams that have the cash and they want more cash. That argument, I'm like, nah. But in terms of competition and having those games happening every week, like, you know, every week you'll play Madrid, every week you'll play Barcelona, every week you'll play Man United. It's like, I understand in terms of marketing and in terms of if I tell you, oh, you're going to play Burnley next week, or you're playing Barcelona, who are you going to watch? Like, what are you going to watch? Like,
Sure.
But the difference is that there is the Champions League. They already have that system there.
The Champions League is only like super interesting from the quarterfinals, really. The last 16.
Yeah, I mean,
The group stage is like snooze fest.
And that's
it's not important.
Yeah, that's the argument, right? I can't remember what it was called. The preseason tournament that they hold, the ICC, where teams play all over the world, and it's a lot of these teams that are actually in this European Super
the club championships, right? Something like that.
Yeah, but they play it in preseason, right?
Yeah,
so there might be a few games in America, a few games elsewhere. Sometimes it's Australia, sometimes it's China, and they go to these markets that don't normally get European football, and it's the marquee teams in Europe playing against each other in front of fans that don't normally get to see them. And the owner of that actually said, I think summer before last, that it would make sense for there to be just a league with the very best teams in it, where they just play each other. Because sure, you do get that in the Champions League, but as you said, up until you get to the quarterfinals or semi-finals, you're likely to only match up with one or two of them in the group stages if you're lucky, right? If there's a group of death. And so having those teams play each other more regularly would insanely boost not only the viewership, but the profiles, and there is more money in those big teams playing each other. And yeah, he said that idea then, basically, again, bringing up this idea of a European Super League. But then my question is, because Ian Wright said the opposite. He chastised Arsenal for getting into this because they couldn't earn their way into the Champions League. And then he's
not wrong.
He was so blunt about it as well. It was pretty funny. And then he was saying that if you play Real Madrid every week, then it won't be special anymore. And I wanted to pose that question to you guys. Do you think that if there was a Super League where a team, take X team, Chelsea, go through a rotation of Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man City, Man United, Juve, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and then do that again, would those matchups lose
100%
how special they are?
Yes,
100%. I remember when I got really into watching sports, international sports, really, because I was watching local sports, football all my life in Argentina, but I became obviously a massive fan of Messi from Argentina, watching him play in Barcelona. And you remember that Barcelona team from around 2010, 2011, they were unbeatable, right? And the best team, after Barcelona was arguably Manchester United at that time with Ronaldo, Rooney. They had a really good team.
Yeah.
And I remember every time they played each other, which was once every 2 years, it was the biggest event, right? If they played every week, I was talking to a friend today about this, like what's special about playing, what's special about El Clasico, Real Madrid versus Barcelona, if you see it 20 times a year, like I don't want to see that. I want to see them twice a year, maybe 3 times if they play in the finals of another tournament. That's it, because that's what makes it special. And that's a really good question. I think that they will lose that spiciness of meeting every now and then, right? Like today, I would like to see, I'm a City fan, City play against Barcelona or play. It never happens, right? But you wish for it to happen. But if it happens every week,
and then sometimes the best games are the ones when you win, like when the opposition is supposed to be shittier than you. They're supposed to be on a different level than you, and they give you a good game, and you have to up your level to win it. And these are sometimes are the best games, and sometimes you get bored. But I think the one thing that scared fans, because the difference again between US sports and European sports is that every single club is very much rooted in like locally to their cities, right?
Sure.
Whereas I can take Seattle Supersonics, get them to fuck off to somewhere else. People will be pissed off by the end of the day. It's like, oh well, it's a business. But I think the loss of having your local roots with your team, and I think in your question you actually mentioned the thing that is scaring most fans. It's literally having games, because it's not called the European Super League, it's called the Super League. It's not even European. Like there's still a thing.
The ESL.
I think the ESL is like they added it later, but like the Super League is the original thing they came out. It's like, dude, they might get super teams, but they might take. Let's say you might have Real Madrid, Man City in Hong Kong.
I know. I thought this. I thought that if the Premier League do go ahead and say, fine, you can't take part in the domestic competition. What's to stop like a Kroenke taking Arsenal to New York?
Yep.
And doing it there, because you'll have the market, and then you're only talking about sort of 20 games or something to fly about for.
This is a really good, that's a really good point, because they would easily move to New York, make the MLS a lot more appealing to a lot more people, and still be able to play in the Super League, right?
And you know that the MLS will go, you can play here, you can play in this domestically.
Here, come take the Sonics Arena. We'll just make the court a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
come to Seattle.
And that's something that that would be the perfect venue for it. Ironically enough, that the NBA leaves, and because football is huge in Seattle. That's one of the biggest teams in America, and they have their rivalry with Portland, which are their neighbors. And like you say, you could just move. You could actually move all the teams. So when you have a match day, you could just have match day 1 in Seattle, match day 3 in New York, match day 6 in Hong Kong, match day 8 in Dubai, Like you could just take the show on the road.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be amazing. They got to do it. I'm back here.
Everybody's hyped now.
I hate it. I really hate it. I'm not gonna lie.
I also hate it, but I would love to see the games as well. You know,
we live in London. They would have to bring the show to London. It'll be great.
Yeah.
No, but it's not. No, but that's exactly the point. You've got Liverpool, you've got Manchester in there, and you're like, it wouldn't necessarily go to Liverpool, or if it would, it might be like once in 20 years.
That would make it really special.
But like there is a huge part of it is basically saying the current domestic fan base, we don't need you. We are now, and I think they even called like fans over 30 legacy fans.
They did that,
like, it's just fucking
These
rude.
corporate terms. Oh my god.
The international market is so much bigger that it does not matter. Like that local support, that people, even as we've seen it, like this year, people in the stadiums, it does not matter. The show will go on.
I think that's where they miscalculated it massively in terms of the owners. It's like they I don't think they quite where the backlash of the fans came from. It's like they didn't catch that.
No, I don't believe that the backpedaling that's going on right now.
No. That's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying. I think they seriously miscalculated the magnitude of the backlash that would have been coming. That was coming through the entire day of people saying like, what the hell are you doing? Because I mean, the way they're looking at it, right? The owners, they want to make more money. So it's like, so let's say you have a what's it called, a season pass. No, it's not called season pass. Bloody hell, freaking TFL. A season ticket. Sorry. So there's a lot of fans like actually season pass. I know.
That's what you got. That's what you have for OnlyFans, Tom.
That's what. We don't discuss it right now. We discuss it.
Not yet. They haven't paid yet, so
they haven't paid. We need to wait. Okay. No, but it's like I'll. If you want to watch a good YouTube video, that was on the True Geordie channel. I know Mike loves the True Geordie, but he had Chelsea fans, he had Man United fans, he had Man City fans on, and they were discussing this. And it's like the guy from Chelsea was like, "Look, I've been going to every single Chelsea game for the last 20 years, and I've paid £900 for my season ticket. I'm literally the owner's worst enemy because he spends 900, but he doesn't buy." The magazine outside, doesn't buy any jersey, doesn't buy any hot dogs, drinks. Right. Like he goes, he meet up with his friends. He loves the football match, and then that's it. Like he's not giving any more money because he's like, look, we're already so fucking rich. Like, what's the point of me giving more money? And he's like, I'm literally the club's worst enemy. I'm his biggest supporter, but I'm also their worst enemy because I'm not spending more than £900. Let's say you move those games into Canada. And you've got a guy who goes and like tickets is £100, $100 or whatever you want to charge for those games, right? The guy's going in there. It's a show. It's a big ass show. Like we all did it. Like we all went to the States. We all went to somewhere in North America, another country, and we went to the stadium and went to an arena. What'd you do? You go into the freaking
gift shop and you buy all
and you spend like all your freaking cash. Like, I'm here with my family. I've got 4 tickets, $400. I'm gonna buy it like in one game. So you can spend that cash easy.
Yeah. And that's all they're looking at. Ticket than you do for a season.
Yeah.
Yes.
For one game.
It's easy. Like you go from one game there's 60,000 seats. You go next game, like next stadium is 80,000. The next stadium is. You go around the world and you sell your stuff and you get a lot more cash than you could ever dream of.
But even that, all that pales in comparison to international TV rights.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Like actual people with sort of money on a game day. Like it has an impact, but it's nothing in comparison to
the TV rights, and then also the sponsorships. And I think that's why something like this gets proposed in the first place, because you look at where the biggest teams make their money from, and I think Man United are probably the most guilty of this. It's not something to be guilty of. when you look at the breakdown of how they earn their money, and I read an article about it a few years back, and you compared it to Chelsea, you compared it to Arsenal, you compared it to City, and most of Man United's revenue as they became the richest club in the world was coming from commercial exploits.
Yep.
It was all Woodward, essentially. It was all commercial exploits. They looked at how football teams can commercialize themselves and build their brand and exercise their brand to make money. And it quickly got to a point where the match day revenue was just a small percentage of what the team makes. And when you minimize that, you minimize the value of the fans monetarily.
Exactly.
The value of local fans, local match going fans.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, once that's the case,
it sounds so bad, doesn't it? Yeah,
it's sad. It is sad. No, it's absolutely sad. And once that's the case, you have situations like this where we're calling them football teams. We talk about the fans. They're just companies.
They are business. They're companies. They're companies that need to make more money.
There are companies, but there's been a massive shift that's gone on in the last few years. Is that now you've actually FIFA and UEFA they've opened the gates to all the like venture capitalists and businesses to own those clubs. Like before, it used to be in the good old days, of legacy fans. Used to be a local businessman, maybe, but like of one of the founders or a local businessman that did well, that is able to re-inject the money into the club and own it, and and now you've got you've opened the doors to getting all these guys in, and and one of the byproducts, and now that's only the logical conclusion of what we've seen in the last 20 years. Is those guys that are now in charge, they're not there to. They don't care if you know the results. They want to get more cash in, and
I mean that's the scariest part of it. It is the logical sort of evolution of it. There are no good guys in the football sort of ESL sort of story, like FIFA, UEFA are just as greedy. They've just sort of got caught out by.
And you know what? You've seen they magically found the money now to up the earnings in the Champions League. They went, okay, fine, you get. Okay, we're getting scammed by the.
What do you think? What do you think, Braun? What do you think Braun said? Because he's part owner of Liverpool, isn't he? So. What do you think?
He's probably on the same side, like saying, "What do you mean relegation?
What is that?
Draw?
What is that?
What's that?
Qualification? No, what are you talking about? Dead that off immediately." LeBron he's a very savvy businessman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So. And that's it. It's something else in his portfolio. I know he pretends to care about the team and stuff, but that's easy to do. You send out a tweet every now and again.
Yeah,
but it's the other thing.
Or the scarf.
He is an international fan, right? It's like us loving the NBA. Like our perspective and what we like about it and things like that might be extremely different from the guys that are sort of on the ground. Like for me in Philadelphia. Probably is not the Knicks because it's just tourists anyway.
We'll see you in the playoffs.
And fans of James Dolan's.
Will you?
Actually, one of the things you were saying before about the threat of relegation and going down and having maybe a positive sign. It's like, look, somebody like it's a good way to actually start over and getting rid of maybe ownership that you don't like. Like I'm sure as a Knicks fan. If there was a relegation and we would have gone down, that would have been great to get rid of our owner potentially. Get some new blood in.
When you devalue what the domestic fans and what the sort of the fans on the ground and going into the games and have that sort of deeper connection to the teams, when you devalue that, you take power away from that as well. If this was to go ahead, like there would be no way the fans could impact those teams individually, because you're not going to buy a season pass for a team. You're going to buy it for the whole league. It's you can't do anything. They're untouchable at this point. But yeah, you go down, people kick off, and there are ways that they can have an influence. It's not as great as what it used to be, maybe, but you still feel like it's impactful. At least you can put a plane over the stadium.
Man, yeah, and I guess you don't have that in the NBA too much. I'm trying to think if there's been I mean, you look at the situation with the former Clippers owner and some of the stuff that people knew he was saying at games, but no one was able to do anything about it until later on when he was caught on tape. But he had a history of saying that kind of thing. And ironically, he helped Dr. Jerry Buss buy the Lakers, right? Like, that's how entrenched he was in the league. So yeah, that is important. Fan influence is hugely important for their sports. And at the end of the day, I think that's something that I didn't realize until I actually went to a Premier League game. It's that people do it for entertainment. People go to watch for entertainment. They'll sit down. They'll go and buy their ticket. They'll go to the stadium. They'll sit down with their gravy and chips, and
all the pies.
A cup of bovril, mate.
Yeah, mate. And they'll watch the game, and that's what they do for entertainment. The same way someone else might read a book or go for a bike ride, or like, it's a pastime at the end of the day that's been taken over by these businesses, by the money.
I completely agree with what you're saying. It's a powerful statement, because there is a movie, an Argentinian movie that in 2009 won the Oscar to Best Foreign Movie, and there's a scene in the movie where it's a very big shot of a stadium, a football stadium is packed. Racing Club, that's the name of the club, and it's packed. And the main character in the movie is talking about the passion. You can change anything in a man's life, anything, man or woman, right? But you can never change their passion. And this guy's passion was football, right? So if you take that away from people are really going to suffer, and they're going to lose that, what you say, people are going because they're entertained. That's what they do. That's what their passion is. It's been passed on for many, many generations. So we should never lose that from sports. It's the main, if not the main thing about the sport itself, besides the sport itself.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There is an emotional connection to the sport and to these teams as well. Like, it's very hard to sort of just think about it in a purely business sense.
Yeah,
because of course the ESL makes business sense for those teams. But it's just not right. It's just
the thing is, that's why we should always be careful when you draw comparison between a day-to-day business, any company, and a football club or a sporting club, because it's not run the same way. The foundation might be, in terms of business and departments within that company, it might be similar. You have a HR department, you've got a marketing department, but the end goal is very different. The end product is very different from anything else, and the way people behave within those companies are completely different. But yeah, I think that there's a miscalculation from those 12 teams where they thought the fans would not matter and their voice would not matter, and it does. And it's like, because there's such a deep connection. It's like, how many of us started their story as like, oh well, I remember going with my dad to a football stadium. Also, it's like it's a connection because it's something that's passed down to you, and that's something that's taken away. It's like if I tell you next week, it's like, well, your team is now being uprooted to Düsseldorf in Germany, but it still be called Liverpool. Like, okay, cool, but like, how am I gonna like it? imagine one of your goals in life, because that's something that happened throughout generations in your family. One of your goals is to pass that down to your kid. That's taken away from you without you having a word, and that that's something.
I don't think
Let me tell you about Dusseldorf, fam. Sorry, before you go, I know exactly where you're going, Mike, and I want you to go there. Just to intercept there, that has happened anyway, right? Seattle was ripped. The Sonics were ripped from Seattle, and Wimbledon became MK Dons, right? So it can happen. Obviously, this would be on a much greater scale with more famous, important teams. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think the backtracking, like the fan sort of voice, the outrage that has been going on, I don't think that's what has been the impact, because I can't see how they would have overlooked that. They've got to have expected that. I think that there's been a certain amount of political weight that's been added to it, and sort of the other. I think some of the sponsorship is probably going to have been affected by it, and that's. I just don't see it being just the fans.
No. It's not
it still makes business sense. Like I don't think you don't see sort of fans outside of the UK kicking off that this is a bad thing.
No. I think I'm not saying the fans only made that happen. That you've got now two teams that are sort of pulling out unofficially. Only fans, yeah.
Not only fans.
/Tom. No, it's not what I'm saying. Is that I think it's and part of it. There's a small. It might be a smaller percentage of what I think, but it's like you said, it's like politicians that got involved. Is for sure sponsorship deals, for sure. Other teams and leagues and officials that got involved in when what you're doing, but there's a little bit of that's why I keep saying that miscalculation from them. They were not I don't think they were expecting a big backlash, or unless they were expecting it, and that's why they all went out at the same time, and they went, we all share the heat for a second, and then people will forget. But no, I'm not saying I agree with you, Mike. I'm not saying at all that the fans, they're the ones that made it happen, and now you got teams that are pulling out of it. Of course not. It's not. You'd be super naive to say that. But
so something's hit the bottom line.
yeah, exactly. It's that.
Yeah, I think the players might have been involved as well,
and the players too. Yeah,
because they're ultimately. That's one of the weirdest things about the whole situation and the backlash. Actually, is that. First of all, they never said they were going to leave the domestic league. So if they weren't going to be in domestic competition, it would be because they were kicked out, in which case you should direct your anger at the local bodies. But then also the fact that the players are the ones that get banned if their team decides to pull them from UEFA and FIFA competitions.
Yeah,
it's like
the national being banned from playing for your
playing the World Cup.
It's like, wait, hold on.
I don't think that would ever.
What did I have to do with this?
Yeah, we had that. They literally didn't get a vote.
We had that in basketball, where
really.
Yeah, when the Euroleague came about, and it was like, well, if you got to play for a Euroleague team, you're not coming
eligible for FIBA.
You're not eligible. They've changed that now, so the FIBA's sort of changed their tone. They're like, okay, fine, now we can do it. This is still happening now, but not for the same reasons. Like, for example, now it's more of a scheduling reason. So national teams will have to go through their qualifications for the Euro, the Olympic Games, or the World Cup.
Yeah,
but the Euroleague players are not available. It's the same that the NBA players are not available at certain times, right? So now it's a hugely different reason. It's just they have to work out who does what when. But before that, I think there was a year or two where it wasn't a ban, but it was like, well, it would be unwelcoming, seeing your players that are in the EuroLeague joining your national team for now. So please, make sure they don't. So it got resolved though.
Yeah.
But FIBA blinked before the EuroLeague blinked, basically.
Yeah, there were a lot of talk. I mean, even on national levels and national leagues, there were a lot of I know the French league did it, and they said, oh, if you join in the EuroLeague, you're out of the national league, and then There was even talks at some point of creating their own little league between France and Spain and Italy or something like that. Just like it was just completely madness. And then which was like, it was like, okay, fine, but it makes no sense culturally and historically.
Play
It just
all
it
games
makes
in
no.
Andorra.
Yeah, you're kidding, but yes, that was that. It's like, let's go to Andorra and freaking Liechtenstein and Luxembourg and like play there. But it's like, that makes Monaco. No sense. Yeah. It's not what you want. Yeah, no, Monaco's they've got their own team, so that's yeah, that was a sad time. And you don't want that in terms of visibility to all the fans. It's like, where are you gonna explain? Like, you're already fighting to survive. It's like, well, we've got teams in the Euroleague and we've got teams that play the French league, and then we've got another French league which is now playing in Andorra against another Spanish team. It's still a French league, but it's you got Italians in there from Verona. It's like
it's the Latin league.
The Latin league, yeah. And that's what you don't want. Yeah, you don't want some crazy hybrid league to pop up.
Yeah. Right.
No.
Yeah, no, it is interesting that FIBA blinked, but I guess they didn't have the leverage of having their, as you said, their qualifying and stuff like that happening after and in between the season. Like in football, it's interwoven into the domestic leagues that you have qualification and all of that. And I actually don't like that. Arsene Wenger, I think, works for. Does he work for UEFA still, or is it FIFA now?
He works now for UEFA or FIFA, one of the two. But he's one of the guys that is looking at the rules and trying to make it evolve.
He wants to change it, and he wants to do a thing where they have qualifying and the tournament all in the same span. So the season would finish earlier. You take out the international friendlies, you take out the international qualifiers from the season, and then the season would finish earlier. And then you go off to your national teams for a longer period over summer. You play some qualifying games or whatever, and then you go into the tournament. And he said also scrap the the smaller tournaments. So scrap the Euros, scrap AFCON and all of that stuff, and just have the World Cup every 2 years in that format.
Sorry.
In that format. And I kind of like it. I
don't. I have to tell you, like, first of all, I don't think that should happen, because I really enjoy Copa America, for example. Just American teams.
Great. Yeah.
But so FIBA is doing this right now. It's doing what you just said. So there used to be a qualifying tournament, FIBA Americas, for example, FIBA Europe, FIBA Asia, and now it's just qualifying windows, right, where a team will play 2 or 3 teams, as in football, as in FIFA. And I think it's super complicated, but it's cool because in a way you're developing other players as well. Let's a quick example for basketball, like Manu Ginobili would never be able to go to those, or Scola would never go to those, or Campazzo would never go to those, but there are a bunch of other players that play locally that are getting developed because they're playing against maybe a second Brazilian team, a B team, but it's still a good team, and you're developing players. So I think it's that should stay for football and for basketball. And for football anyway, they're stopping the bigger competitions anyway for the bigger players to play in their local qualifying tournaments, aren't they?
Yeah. In sports, we like tribalism. We like to be local champions. It's all about local banters. And it is. You need to be the king of the village, if you so to speak. It's one of the things. It's one. It's like, look, we messed you up last year.
This is how we know Tom isn't American, because otherwise, when Asphalt wins the French league, they would be champions of the world, right?
Champion of the world, exactly. But again, we're the biggest team in like, we've got our village idiots in New York. They play in black and white. It's like, we all need the smaller team to beat up on.
Oh, all right. We'll wait for summer.
Yes, please.
And if my Lakers don't beat them, then you're gonna have to give them their respect. A lot of respect was given last summer. A lot of respect. All right. So just to end, I'm gonna make our final segment rapid fire. And what I've done is I have written down different facets of a league. All right. And what I want you guys to do is say, in your ideal league situation, would you have this in or out? Is it a yes? Is it a no? All right. So we're gonna start with the good European facet of having draws. Wait, hold on. Is this a basketball league or a football league? This is a basketball league.
Yeah.
All right.
It's got to be both. Right?
Would you introduce or would you have draws in your ideal league, Tom?
No. Do I get to say why? Or very briefly why?
Very
no,
quickly.
go on. No, but no. It's just basketball is a North American sports, and I think culturally it's fine not to have a draw.
Okay.
That's all.
Mike?
No. Overtime is dope.
Yes.
It actually is in basketball, not so much.
It is in basketball, it's dope.
Jose, draws or no draws?
100% no draws.
No draws.
No,
Okay.
I like an overtime action.
It's unanimous.
I also like a 5 overtime game, like
Yes.
Keep playing.
just keep playing, keep scoring points, and quadruple doubles and all that.
So that's a unanimous no. We go back to the beginning again. Tom, salary cap or no salary cap?
Yes.
100%
yes.
Taking money out of the good players' pockets.
No, because it leads to what we have in Europe right now. The arms race that is inviting more and more.
Should Messi not be the best paid player in the world?
Yeah, thanks to salary cap. Yeah, sure, he can be, along with somebody else who's
have to be paid £2 an hour.
No, yes, salary cap, yes.
Mike?
In theory, yes, but I would want the excess funds to be distributed in the sport and not to the owners.
Aha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
I'm not about taking the money out of the players' hands and putting it into the business.
Jose?
Yes. It brings fairness. So yes.
It's the only way that you stop this
excess
ridiculousness that it's got to.
Yeah. Right. Super mega teams.
Barcelona being £1 billion in debt.
Yeah, exactly that.
But they're more than a club, guys. They put a charity on their shirts. They
have a basketball team too.
Basketball team too,
yeah. A draft. Would you want a draft for players?
So you're assuming that, yeah. That I've got so many problems with the drafts. I don't know. That's an episode in on itself. So no, I don't like the draft. To be honest, I do not like the draft.
Okay.
And for many, many, many reasons. But let's go next to Mike.
Mike?
Yes, but only if it's combined with probably what your next question is.
Okay.
See in the future.
Someone can read my sheet, apparently. Jose?
No, because a draft means that the teams that do worse get better chances of having a better pick, which means that you will lose on purpose or try to lose on purpose at some point. So no, a draft couldn't go hand by hand with a relegation, for example. But then
it could.
So.
Oh, here we go. Mike's got ideas, apparently.
I'm glad it's all going. Here's my
Which is my next one on my sheet, literally. It's the next thing written. Relegation, Tom.
Yeah. Of course, yes. Which is why it's a weird thing for me to enjoy the Euroleague. But it's the Euroleague on the side of a national. Well, no, it's awesome to be in the Euroleague. There's no going up and down. There's no relegation. There's no being, there's only one goal because you play the biggest teams, and that's awesome. But I equally love my national team, my national league, where you can go up and down, and there's a risk. It's not just about winning the title; it's about trying not to fall.
So what would ever happen if your team goes down? Are they still going to be in the Euroleague if they play for the second division in France?
Depends. Actually, that's something we forgot to mention is the settings of the Euroleague. It depends what if you've got your seat at the table. Your Olympiacos got no team in the first division in Greek basketball. They play in the second division because they got relegated last year for financial reasons. So they've got two teams. They got one that play in the second division. They got one team that plays the Euroleague.
Interesting.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know. Ah, shit. I need
so
to
two rosters. They have two rosters.
Two rosters. So the one that plays in the second division is like a young team, like younger players that like a G League almost team.
Yeah. But this is because they got relegated.
They got relegated last season because of financial reasons. There's something dodgy they were doing. And anyway, but they're part of the 11s from the EuroLeague, so they have their seat on their shareholders. So forgot to mention, the EuroLeague, you buy in the EuroLeague, so you are shareholder for life, but you're not really for life. It's 10 years. You sign a 10 years contract, and that contract is then renewed after that. But you, as a shareholder, you decide what team comes in and what team comes out. Like you get wild cards, you get invites for a couple of years to prove like we are right now. We invited for 2 seasons, and then they have to vote to say, well, we like what they're doing, and then you get voted in. You're part of the family.
Do you like the new guy?
Do you like the new guy?
Utter nonsense.
Says the guy who loved the NBA.
It's the biggest issue with it.
It's the biggest issue with it, but once you're in, it's a sweet, sweet feeling. all the money.
The compassion?
You know what though? My one of the point is like, if you want to join, if you want to go up there, it forces you to work that lot harder to try and get there and get those sponsorship deals in, get your arena and your stadium in order, and make sure it's sexy and appealing for everyone else. And then you can claim your seat at the table.
Like, how does that?
Up your game.
Yeah, man. You sell your replays. You sell your. You have a Kia in the stadium while you play. It's all there, man. Sponsorship deals. So, Mike, relegation or no relegation?
Yes, definitely relegation. And this is how it would work with the draft and why I like the draft still. Basically, what you would do is the team that would come up as champion from the lower league would get the first pick. The second team that would come up would get second pick. So it's still, there's merit earned from that as well. And then you just go up as you normally would.
And the team that finished just on top.
Round for the top.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah. I see that. I can see it.
So
but then does the champion get a pick?
I will take my pick now.
You do get a pick because it's
a low pick.
I mean like a low pick, but a pick nonetheless. So okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No trading picks.
No trading picks.
That was going to be my next question.
Fair enough. All protected. No trading, nothing.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. Okay,
but definitely relegation. Like I just don't like the fact that you can't earn your way. Like the best thing for me, like as we said, I support Sunderland. We've gone down to League One. There is a route to European Champions League football right now. If you're gonna like cut that off, it's just like, well,
basically this is where my point of view is slightly weird, right? Because like I understand buying your way, as in if you're a founder club of the competition, you bought your way because you literally said, I've got 20 mil in the bank, just give a figure, let's pull that money all together and start that. But like we had, like my home team had to work their way towards this, like, because we have to have a new arena. We have to make sure the organization around it is tipped up. We have to make sure our business deals are amazing. We have to make sure that we attract. And there's the difference is that the talk of us moving or playing games somewhere else is that's never been in discussion. It's never been that thing where it's like it's entirely private and it's being moved somewhere else, but it's they had to up their game. So I was saying before, they had to up their game to be even considered being added in the EuroLeague. You can still qualify in the EuroLeague if you win the Euro Cup, for example, which is the equivalent of the Europa League. So you can still and you can still qualify if you're champion in your national competition. So let's say usually the French champion gets an invite, and the finalist sometimes gets an invite if they do well in the Euro Cup or in the Basketball Champions League. So they're still, in terms of on the field, on the court, there's still a way to qualify.
Yeah.
Those chances of qualifications are severely reduced, though. That I agree, because you've got only 18 teams, 11 of the spots are already reserved. So you've got 7 out of the 7, 3, 4, 5 of them are reserved for wildcards and teams that are there for 2 or 3 years. So then gives you like 3 spots open really for another champion to come in.
But like for the NBA, there's no way, if you're a team, like it's such a hard comparison because it just doesn't.
Different monster, different kind of monster.
Yeah.
You can't be like, okay, we are the best G League team. Like let's go and get our way. Let's go and earn our way into the big bucks, into the sort of the big time.
Yeah.
There's like, and again, that's how you end up with Seattle Supersonics just not existing anymore. If you had like relegation promotion, they would go down and they would be replaced, and you'd have that sort of, you'd have more big teams, or you'd have more medium-sized teams, I guess, if you had it.
Well, you'd have more small teams.
Yeah.
You'd have more small teams. All right, relegation, Jose.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, pro relegation.
Easy.
And the last one, which I just added, is probably the most important, guys. You can tug at those heartstrings. But don't forget, you're also a business. It's fan ownership.
Hey, I like that.
Tom, fan-owned teams?
Yeah.
In an ideal world?
Ideal world, yeah, it would be great. Like Barcelona has, where you have elections deciding who the president is going to be, and this sort of setup, or like in Germany when the fans owns 51% or 50 plus 1%.
Yes, yeah. It's impossible for anyone to have a majority ownership over the fans in Germany.
Yeah, and I would actually prefer that system, like across the board for every single team everywhere. That'd be great, but not in NBA. So just talking in Europe. I would love to own like shares or parts of my local team. Like, imagine how baller that is. Like, you grew up watching them. Like, it's like, look, I own a piece of it. It's like,
I agree.
You know.
Yeah.
All in agreement. Fan ownership.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Get a seat at the table.
All right, I think we're gonna end it there. So thank you for listening. If you were listening, remember to like, share, subscribe, and rate and review the podcast on any platform that you listen to it. Give us a thumbs up, 5 stars, please. And yeah, get us on socials at Grit and Grime Pod. Is there anything else? At Grit and Grime Pod, across socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I've been your host, David Sagoe. So from me, Thomas Arnal.
I know, bye. We're done.
I just forgot words, did you?
Just random noises.
I need to sleep.
Michael Downey.
Good night.
And Jose Garcia Vidal.
Bye-bye.
Oh, we're out of here.